good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I'm Ryan Tofil. Welcome to the Bone Zone, where we talk about skeletons 24/7. Your Halloween source for news. Brian Chai is back. A little bit of a downgrade with Dan Brown last week. Yeah, but luckily, Brian Chai is back in the saddle again. This is Unpopular Opinions, and we'll get into a little later. WWE had their their biggest show of the month yesterday, Extreme Rules, and we'll talk about that a little later. We'll maybe try to get that in after like 45 minutes or so. So we'll get stuff that people are interested to hear before that. But the last time you were on, I started on quite a rant about video game prices in the secondary market.
Yep.
And how I thought that it was kind of ruining people's, at least casual fans' exposure to what could be really good experiences. So for you, I'm kind of like the borderline, like just casual versus hardcore, I guess, where like I know what all games are generally worth, but I'm not trying to turn a profit on them. Like, I'm not buying duplicates or anything like that. My intention on all of these old games is to play them. I've only sold games a few times, and it was while I was a college student just in desperate need of money. But for you, I don't know, is it fair to say that you're a bit more like out of the loop on like the prices of games in there?
Yeah, collecting, it was always something I wanted to get into with video games. But, I never knew too many good places like growing up. Like it was always just, the EB games, the GameStops, and you were never going to really, start a good collection there.
So, I guess just do you agree with what I was saying is like, as maybe more of a casual collector, someone who is not going to spend more than a game is worth, maybe not even go through the trouble of really buying retro games anymore. Do you is the price a reason why, as someone who likes video games, that you aren't into that genre of it as much?
I think so. I mean, like, just for example, Chrono Trigger. Like, I know like a sealed original Super Nintendo copy of Chrono Trigger is hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, I bought mine out of the box, no manual, anything, a few years ago for like $90.
Yeah, and see, like, that's hard for me because like I feel like if I spent the hundreds of dollars for like a sealed copy, I'd want to play it. Like,
yeah.
Like, I think that's always my problem is, even if I collected cool stuff, I want to take it out of the box. I want to play it, Like, I just don't think I have the capacity to have, the self-control to not rip it open and play it and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, what I would probably do in that scenario is try to get an open copy of it also and play it. That's what I did with Turtles in Time, is I have a complete in-box, and that's in plastic, and it never is going to leave that.
How much did that Turtles in Time set you back? So like
about
sealed?
$150. It's not sealed. It's complete in-box, but has been opened before, and it's in hard plastic now, not like the shrink wrap.
Okay.
But, I have a copy of the game that I bought for $60 or $80 or whatever that I'll play. Did you get on Amazon at all today for Prime Day?
I did not. Did you get anything cool?
Okay, so I did, dude, and they got me. Like, I enjoy marketing and trying to sell to people and convince them that they need things, and Amazon freaking got me today, dude. I log on and there's this Fire tablet. So it's the flagship tablet for Amazon. Pretty good deal. It was like $50 off from like $80 to $30, I think.
That's really good.
So, man, what is it? Fire Pro 7 or whatever, which is how many inches the screen is. And then so I was like, okay, this would be great, like for my girlfriend. You know, if we're ever on any like road trips or something, she could get some Netflix or Amazon Prime shows downloaded and then watch that like while I'm driving or whatever. And so that's $30. And then I'm like, well, okay, well, we do get on planes a lot because neither of us live in our hometown anymore, and we're visiting family, and we're both usually going at the same time. So I might as well get myself one also. And I'm like looking at it and comparing everything, and I was like, well, okay, I can get my girlfriend the cheaper one because I don't know if she'll care about the difference. But, you know, I'm going to get the best reviewed one as far as value goes, and I got like the mid-tier one, which was on like another $50 off of, you know, so it was $50. And then I'm like, okay, so if I'm on a plane, I'm gonna want to like stand it up though, plus I don't want the screen getting all scratched. I better get a case. And that's $15. And then they get me for $8 tax. So like I log on just to poke around. I'm not necessarily gonna buy anything, just see what's going on, and I see a tablet for $30, and 20 minutes later I'm checking out with a $110 cart.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they get you, right? Just, you know, one good deal leads to another, and then one thing needs something else, and it just adds up super quick. Is the sale still going on, or is it over? And like
I saw that particular one had like 32 hours on it when I was on it maybe 6 hours ago.
Okay. I'm going to check that out. I'm actually in the market for a tablet, so...
well, here's the thing. I never was like, man, I need a tablet until I logged on, and I was like, wow, like... It's the lowest tier of their brand of tablet. You know, it's like the Kindle Fire Pro 7 or whatever, but it was $30, and you could, if you wanted a 3-pack for some reason, then that was only $80.
A 3-pack of tablets?
Yeah. So, but I ended up getting like different tiers of tablet quality or whatever, and I don't know, man. Like, I guess I just shouldn't log on then, because I wasn't really looking for anything. And then this,
all of a sudden, you're spending $100.
Yeah. But I've been looking at the NES Classic lately, and you know,
do you have either the NES or the SNES?
I got the SNES right when it came out. I was Best Buy, I was on the East Coast at the time, and they released it at like 2 a.m. Eastern, and I had an app that sent me a notification immediately, so I actually went through the checkout process twice and gave one to my friend. But, you know, I've been thinking about the NES, but I mostly already have all of those games, and, you know, I don't know how I feel about modding or playing games illegally. Like I used to do it all the time when I was in middle or high school, because, you know, I could download them and then play those games that I thought I was never going to get a chance to, because, you know, if I was either too young to have a job, or I had a job but it was at minimum wage and I had to buy food or whatever, like I was just not in a position to be spending a lot of money there. Now, I'm at a point in my life where I do have some expendable income. Is that the right place, though, to be spending it all when I could just do it illegally for free? I don't know. Like, I know that like Dan Brown, he doesn't care about copyright, and you know, whether it's someone taking his stuff or him taking others, because if something is good enough, then somebody will pay you to produce it regardless, you know, at least the first time. And so if you are making a good enough quality product, whether not plagiarism, emulation or pirating exists, you're going to make money regardless. Now, that takes away from like the bottom tier of people that are making money, but still the really quality products are still going to do okay.
Yeah, I mean, with emulation, it's always been such like I don't want loophole, I guess. Just technically, you're allowed to have ROMs of games that you own.
Yes.
I believe that is the legal jargon associated with that. But I mean, there's no way to enforce that. So there is that really tempting part of just, you know, pirating it or ripping it illegally. But at the same time, like, you do want to support products that you like. Like, just for instance, I just recently purchased in college and stuff, I'd watch some Ring of Honor, which is fairly, a little underground. Like, it's hard. It's not mainstream. Like, it's harder to find. So I just download illegal, AVIs of episodes and stuff like that in college. But just a couple days ago, I dropped like $120 for their like VIP Honor Club. So I can watch all their shows legally. I can watch all their pay-per-views legally. Because I want to support the product. So for me, that's always been the balancing act.
Yeah. Where I think it's different, and I might be leaning toward maybe getting an NES Classic and just modding it to be able to play whatever I want on there, is that like Nintendo or whoever is responsible for producing them is not getting the money at this point. It's some guy who's sitting on the cartridge of Little Samson or whatever, and that's worth $800 now that I'm never in a million years going to pay. But I really want to play the game because I think it will be a cool experience, and the company that made it, Taito, isn't even in business anymore. So should I really feel bad about modding like an NES Classic
so you can play Little Samson?
Yeah, to be able to play that, or using like flash card or just emulation and playing it on a computer.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely a thing, right? Like, some things you cannot procure. Like, if you paid, how much does a copy of Little Samson go? Like, if you were to buy like the actual cartridge?
Depends on what condition it in. Like I've seen one that it is the original Little Samson cartridge, but they wanted $650 for it, and it had a sticker label on it. So like the label had been destroyed, and they had printed a reproduction label and put it on an original cartridge, and they wanted $650, which I don't really care about, like, the condition of games as long as they play. So that wouldn't bother me. Just $650 was still a lot of money for something that's an NES title, and you're going to get a few hours out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's rough because, I mean, like, the only person making money off that is the owner of the game. Like, you're not really supporting the creation of more content.
Yeah.
Like, that's, again, I think that's kind of been my, inner battle as far as if I feel like I can support the creation of more quality content down the road, I'll lean towards paying money for it, even if it is a bit up there. But just with something like Little Samson, man, that's tough. Like, it's hard to tell someone, no, don't emulate that.
Do you pre-order current games anymore?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't. And for anyone who wants to change the way that games are made, I would recommend you don't. It really depends on your perspective. I know that you said, and I totally agree with you, that video games, as far as like an investment for your money, a $60 video game that you're going to play for 20 hours is like way better hourly than a $10 movie ticket for something that's 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But I there's no way that I'm going to get WWE 2K18. I'm sorry, 2K19 is the one that's about to be released. Yes. Because every time I've played it in the last few years, it's been the same thing. But the way to get Ronda Rousey and Rey Mysterio is you have to pre-order.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you want that to stop being the way things are, then we need to stop pre-ordering games. And, like, that is totally ridiculous to me that you have to pre-order to, like, get the full game. And I say that because Ronda Rousey and the return of Rey Mysterio are so big into WWE's marketing currently that it's totally ludicrous to think that the game is complete with them omitted.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a really scummy practice. So right now I have 2 games pre-ordered. I got the new Spider-Man for the PS4 and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay.
both studios I'm kind of comfortable giving my money to, even though I know, because I don't even think there's any really significant benefits of pre-ordering. They're just games that I know I'm gonna buy anyway, so I had the money. Let's just buy it, get it out of the way. I don't have to worry about it when it comes out. I can play it. But yes, the practice of pre-ordering has been, I think, as a whole, pretty detrimental to the video game industry. I mean, you walk into a GameStop and they're going to try to get you to pre-order 4 or 5 games. I mean, granted, their jobs kind of depend on it, but it's this idea that by giving a company guaranteeing that you're going to give your money to a company, where's the incentive for them to try or even put out the full game, as in the case of WWE 2K19?
Right. Even with Red Dead Redemption 2, I would argue that if people wouldn't have spent so much money on Grand Theft Auto 5 online, that we would already have Rockstar's next game.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's fair for us to just be like, Rockstar, you have to give us your games on our terms, but we're the ones paying for it. And if we wouldn't, it's been 2013 was their last game release, and before that they were releasing Bully, so many Grand Theft Autos every other year, and then with a secondary title, whether it was Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Revolver, in between the Grand Theft Auto games, and that was every year up until Grand Theft Auto 5, which is when they started doing online play and microtransactions. And they could afford to not do anything for 5 years because people kept buying stuff for GTA 5 online. I can understand why people would, if you get that much enjoyment out of Grand Theft Auto 5 and you would rather put your money that you would be spending on other games into that instead of on other things because you enjoy it that much, then more power to you. Just you're the reason that I had to wait until the end of 2018, 5 years after Rockstar's last game.
Yeah. I mean, the advent of free-to-play and microtransactions, I mean, they've been terrible for games, but man, for game developers, it is a freaking gold mine. I mean, it isn't. I think I read somewhere that Fallout Shelter, the free-to-play little base building game on iOS, has made more money for Bethesda than I think the last 3 Fallout games combined.
Yeah, that's totally believe it.
That's
totally
mind-blowing to me.
I think it is the idea of free to play or just anything where the price isn't listed in full. It just blows my mind. I know that free to play is a little bit different in that you don't have to do these things, but even if it's not video games, if you're buying tickets from a concert, Ticketmaster, it is not reasonable for them to hide fees until checkout. Cell phone companies, the idea of getting a bill that you are confused about is so how can you take that for granted? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where people just accept that as well, yeah, they gotta be on the phone with the cable company for another 3 hours. And then you're well, that's just what you got to do when you're dealing with Comcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to do those things. We shouldn't be surprised by fees at the end of Ticketmaster. We shouldn't have some baloney connection or overage charge that we were never told anything about from our internet provider. And when you need to pay extra or do something special to get the full package for a video game, it needs to be advertised as such.
Yeah, but the whole psychology of getting people to pay these $5 here, $5 on these free to play games. It's mind blowing that I saw the most popular video game in the world right now is probably Fortnite. And I think that's a safe thing to say. Free-to-play game.
Right.
I think I saw that the average Fortnite player spends has spent $80 on that game.
80?
Which is more than obviously more than a normal price video game. And, that's obviously going to have a wider, I'll admit, I played a bit of Fortnite. I think I put, like $5 into it because I wanted this costume. I was like, sure, it's a free game. I'll pay $5 for a quality product. But that means for every person like me who spends $5-10 here, there's someone else, paying $150 into that game. Like, that is just mind blowing to me. Like, I mean, I don't want to sound like an old man yelling at a cloud, but man, just the days where you pay, even if you paid, $75 for a Super Nintendo cartridge, you got the whole game. Like, there's no nickel and diming. Like, you have the whole experience. It's been made that way, and that's that. And it just blows my mind, the proliferation. I mean, like, what do you think it is? Like, do you think it's just, it's I don't have that mindset. Like I said, I spent $5 on Fortnite. I think it's a quality game. I'm fine with putting $5 into it, but I cannot justify putting $150 into it.
No, I mean, there are a lot of different opinions on it. Like, I think people are crazy for putting money into like FIFA Ultimate Team or something like that, where they could get better cards and better players. And it's like, okay, that FIFA Ultimate card like doesn't actually exist outside of cyberspace or whatever.
It's a string of code.
Right.
Yeah.
And then someone will clap back at me, even though, I've not invested my life savings into it. I went through one period of playing Magic the Gathering where I spent maybe $150.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I have the physical card, like who cares? You know what I mean? Like, if I have a physical Magic card, like I'm not gonna whip it out and just impress like the general population and like something good has occurred because I'm holding that piece of paper instead of it being on my computer screen. Also games probably take a lot more to develop these days than they did,
and to maintain, like with a Fortnite that's constantly updated, stuff like that.
And I think we get very few bad games that achieve like mainstream popularity. I don't know if people were playing. I'm trying to think of a good example of like a game that just everyone had back in the day, and it wasn't even that good. It was just.
I mean, somewhat recently, it's probably PUBG. Again, another kind of, it's more modern, but
yeah,
it's.
I'm thinking back in the days before updates.
Okay.
Boy, I don't know. I mean, somebody must have been buying like old Madden games.
Yeah.
Year after year. When. I guess you could say that the new rosters was cool, but often they didn't make too many changes from game to game. And I know that from 92 to 93 on the Super Nintendo, it's like the exact same graphics. And I think they were able to... Oh, man, they had the team names on there, maybe?
Yeah.
Or like real player numbers. But... somebody was buying that, and it was nothing more than a roster update when the rosters were outdated anyways because they were set 3 months before the game came out.
Yeah, I'm trying, like two games that come to mind that kind of fit that mold for me at least, because like I can say now in 2018 they were objectively not good games. I don't think they were. PS2 launch title The Bouncer. But, I wanted to get it because it was a launch title. I had a brand new PS2, and I didn't want to just, keep playing old PS1 games with slightly faster loading times. And on the Dreamcast, Shenmue, I know that was a big deal. It was a really big deal. But, man, I don't think that game was very good at all. But I had it. I paid the full price. I bought the game because other people, it was such a big deal at the time.
Yeah, one of the biggest I've ever been burned on a game was probably 1-2 Switch. Because I love Nintendo, and I wanted the Switch right when it came out, and I went and stood at line at Target like before the sun came up. And I don't really like Zelda. I respect it, and I understand why other people do. It is not really my cup of tea, especially when compared to Mario, and especially side-scrolling Mario. So I did buy Breath of the Wild, but I wanted something else on the Switch because I just felt obligated to buy Zelda, but I wanted something else because Zelda was my favorite. I bought 1-2 Switch for $60, and it's like $15 worth of mini games, maybe. And all of them last like 30 seconds. It's not like Mario Party where there's 100 of them in like a main screen with an objective or any. It's like a screen where you can pick from like 15 different mini games, and then you go into them, and all of them last 15 seconds, and they're not that fun. And then another one I just bought was RBI Baseball because I wanted a baseball game on the Switch, and it's freaking brutal.
I mean, but didn't you get Mega Baseball?
I got Super Mega Baseball. It's because they gave it away for free on Xbox Live Gold. And, I've absolutely been loving that. But RBI Baseball was not a good investment.
What do you think is your worst, like not collector wise, but just like a game that you've played? What is your worst video game investment ever?
My worst video game investment ever. I don't know. I mean, it's easy in like hindsight. Hindsight's 2020 to say all of the money I spent on the games that they then released on the SNES and the NES Classic. Because like I had played them on the official Nintendo console with the official Nintendo controllers for much cheaper. Like, yeah, geez. 1-2 Switch has to be up there. The first Mario Party.
You don't like the first one?
I mean, it's okay. I got into the N64 so late that like it was one of those things where you look back on it and realize it wasn't as good as you remember. I think that the whole N64 and PS1 era is like that. Like those games have not aged well, and like Mario Kart 64 had to be one of the most popular games ever. As far as a home console is released, and like as far as like the party mentality and just the breadth of people who like got together with friends and did that is like one of the most successful games ever in terms of name recognition and just correlation with how much fun you had playing it. Especially compare it to games now. Mario Kart 64 is not that good.
Yeah,
like the driving mechanics and stuff is not super responsive. It's really hard to get out of the way of a banana you see coming like way out in front of you. I think that Crash Team Racing runs circles around Mario Kart 64, but at the time, myself included, I thought Mario Kart 64 was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's hindsight.
Man, even the Super Mario Kart, Super Nintendo version of Mario Kart, I think is better. I'm not trying to claim that it got more people around the TV than Mario Kart 64 did. I'm saying if you sat down today from scratch and just started playing all of the Mario Karts and then ranked them against each other without the benefit of thinking about Mario 64 in the time period that it was released, I think you would have to put Super Mario Kart ahead of it.
Yeah. Man, it is true. Like the N64 was, some people revered it for, games like Mario 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time. I mean, but really, aside from those two specific games, there was a lot of games on that system that have aged so poorly. Like even the original Smash Brothers, like trying to go back and play that, to me, that was rough. Like that was not a pleasant experience going back and playing OG Smash.
Yeah, part of that, for all of those games these days is we're playing it with a 20-year-old controller, which the N64 controllers did not hold up. And if you've got a controller out there without any issues currently, more power to you. That is rare. I mean, I've got, probably the third-party ones that I've bought new, plus the original Nintendo ones. Maybe like I've gone through 10 N64 controllers, and I've got like 2 that I'm like super happy with.
Yeah, those controllers were a mess. I mean, just from a ergonomic standpoint, having like that 3-pronged grip,
and the floppy joystick, dude, like can make some games unplayable these days.
Yep.
Yeah, and just I don't have as much fun with it as I do the Super Nintendo these days. You know, but they were pretty crazy for the time. I mean, I was on the PlayStation side of things as a kid, but man, like Crash Team Racing, I don't think it gets any better than that. And then there was a time when like every Madden game just seemed so different and so good. Once Madden really figured out what it was doing, what generation do you think that the Madden series was the best on?
Oh, the best. Man, that's tough. In terms of what I spent the most time on, it's easily the PS2 era. But you know, by the same token, you know, that I was in college at the time. Like I had all the free time in the world. You know, I enjoy Madden now. There is a lot about it that isn't great. Obviously, it's not a perfect game series. Even stuff like NBA 2K, like, yes, it looks realer than ever. I can see the sweat beads on Shaq's forehead. Yeah. But some of the stuff, like, because they try to make it so realistic, it kind of takes the fun out of the video game part of it. And I say this as someone who loves NBA 2K, but I just remember the PS2 era sports games I had so much fun with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would definitely have to agree with you for Madden. For some, maybe we just had lower expectations, but like in 2005 when they introduced the hit stick, it seemed like, okay, like you could not be playing 2004 because you're missing out on the hit stick. And then in 06, you know, love it or hate it, the passer vision was really different, and they came out with the truck stick, which totally changed how you would play offense. Yep. So those games were really good. The thing that I don't love about NBA 2K, and I'll give NBA Live a chance whenever I can, is NBA 2K locks you into animations, and it feels like you have control of your player like 30% of the time.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. I was way more into NBA Live back in like PS2 over 2K for that exact same reason. And, you know, now it's kind of, you don't have a choice. Like, NBA Live has been dormant and not very good. Yeah. But, man, it does feel like just a completely different era. I mean, I guess a lot of that started with the PS3 era. Like, a lot of the canned animation, stuff like that was with the 360 PS3 era.
I don't know exactly when NBA Live stopped producing games, but I do know for me, and it wasn't necessarily Michael Jordan specifically, but it was when the 2K series brought Michael Jordan into it, and then all of the teams that he played against, where it was like game over for me, you know. And you can tell how much I like years gone by all the talking I do about how much better the Super Nintendo is than these days on this program. But like 2K11 for me is where NBA 2K was like the basketball game, and like if you wanted to play one, no amount of logic was going to get you to NBA Live.
Yeah, it's
did they even make NBA Live at that point? Like
I honestly cannot remember when they discontinued NBA Live for a bit, but yeah, like I just remember putting countless hours into NBA Live, like 2005. Like, to me, like, just it was the perfect balance of like realism with you know, arcadey stuff. Like I remember how much fun I had with NBA Street, the NBA Street games. It brought me back to my NBA Jam days. But there was like legit, you know, replayability in the game. Like, you recruit players, you can, you know, improve your character stats, stuff like that. Just, you know, and that got discontinued too. You know, I guess people just prefer like their hardcore sims. Like, you don't see as nearly, like, there's no more NFL Blitz. Yeah, like that's not a thing anymore. NFL Street, which was not good, but that's also not a thing anymore.
I like the NFL Street too.
I wasn't a huge fan.
Yeah, me and my buddy, the legend of Anthony Munoz, he became like a cult hero among my group of friends because we would do all lineman games to like make it just more fun and interesting because the quarterbacks could throw too well and the receivers and running backs were too athletic. Like you just do too much with them, which is kind of what they intended for. Like, it's an arcade game and it's just pick up and play. And you wanted just to be able to do insane things with Mike Vick and Randy Moss. Yeah. But, that wasn't fun, like, to play consistently.
Yeah.
So what we did was linemen, and we really had to get creative with the strategy. But Anthony Munoz was the only legend lineman in the game, so his attributes were like twice as good as anyone else. So it would be like a scramble to get Munoz, and he would do such incredible things on this football field filled with only offensive linemen that he kind of took on a life of his own. And we would like go around our high school changing like all of the computers' backgrounds, just zoomed in on Munoz's mustache and stuff, just because of how much fun we had with him. And Fell Street too. I remember Kyle Turley was a pretty big character for us. He was always picked Kyle because Turley. He was one of the fastest. I think there was Chris Samuels on the Redskins who wore like a red jumpsuit and a bucket hat. So we just always called him Red Jumpsuit.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that, I think that's also another thing that's kind of gotten lost, like the art of like, I don't know if it's art, but like self-imposed challenges. Not that there wasn't necessarily a challenge, but like a game like GTA, just for example, there's really only one way to play it, and it's the way that the developer wants you to. Like, I do feel like there's a lack of, stuff like going all linemen in NFL Street, or, Nuzlocke runs in Pokemon, just stuff like that, people.
What's a Nuzlocke?
It's just a different way to play Pokemon to make it harder. Basically, you can't revive your Pokemon after they get knocked out. You have to release them.
Oh, okay.
So just like self-imposed challenges like that, like, I feel like so many games, like, there's only one way to play Uncharted, and I love Uncharted, but there's only one way to really play it. Yeah, that's
like as linear as it gets.
Yeah, so just stuff like that. Like, it is crazy to think about, just stuff like that kind of going to the wayside.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've said it before, where it's just like the innocence involved with it, and I think that what you're talking about is in the same vein as like having to have instruction booklets to like explain how cool of a scenario you're in. Like Tecmo Super Bowl made such a big deal about like, can you get your team to the Super Bowl? And it's like trying to convince you like, oh no, it's like the Super Bowl because like you have to use your imagination, and it's like trying to help immerse you in it. Or stuff like Super Mario World, where it's got like backstories for the characters, and you can like just maybe there's a little bit more room to use your imagination because the limitations of systems at that time left more things up for interpretation. Like, I don't know if you ever did your own commentary while playing like Madden on a Sega Genesis.
I did not do that. I have tried my hand at commentating various things, and I'm terrible at it. So
I actually did some color commentary. It was about the first thing I ever did in radio. I was helping write commercials. I read some weather reports and some commercials, but for the most part I was doing color commentary on sporting events like around the county. I lived in for a small radio station. I really liked it because I had played these sports before, so I knew about them. I played baseball in college, so I felt comfortable being able to talk about baseball and stuff. And if the play-by-play guy, the play-by-play guy, it was his responsibility to figure out what to say. Like if I didn't have anything to say, then I just wouldn't say anything, and it wasn't my fault. Like the play-by-play guy had to fill it, so it was just a low-pressure scenario to get my feet wet in radio, talking about something I was comfortable with. And I would assume that all of the commentary I did for myself on Madden 94 probably helped.
Are there any actual real life like sports commentators or announcers that you think excel at their jobs currently?
I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. As much as I hated him while he was playing, Tony Romo makes more sense to me than any NFL commentator out there. Maybe Dan Fouts will call people out on it a little bit. Clock management in the NFL drives me absolutely insane. How these coaches that get paid $1 million a year will just allow somebody to call a timeout. The quarterback will just call timeout 2 minutes into the third quarter, and then on a game-winning drive, they're out of time and aren't able to get up and spike the ball.
Geez, I could really use another timeout.
Or trying to get down the field in a minute, and guys are just walking to the line. Clock management is absurd to me how bad NFL teams are at it. And Tony Romo is the only one that I have ever heard being what are you guys doing? Get to the line, call a timeout, or and so many just give them a pass for that. And maybe there's some nuance I don't understand with the professional football game.
I don't think you're wrong, though. I mean, so you said you're an Eagles fan, so I'm sure watching Andy Reid 4 years just butcher 2-minute drives must have been one of the most frustrating things in the world.
Him and Donovan McNabb, man, had to have more first quarter timeouts than any other coach quarterback combo in history.
I mean, but it is true, though. I feel I don't want to, belittle the difficulties of being an NFL coach, but when it comes to clock management, I feel like a good Madden player has a better grasp of clock management than some NFL coaches, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah, for as much as I dislike Tony Romo, I was watching him with the Cowboys, and as happy as I was to watch him fumble that field goal to end their season, I have to give him credit. I think that he's the best color commentator.
I think that's pretty fair. I mean, 'cause I'm trying to think. I used to really, really like Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson and Mike Breen, that 3-man team for NBA games.
Right.
But over the last probably 2 seasons, it just seems like they're kind of checked out.
Yeah, I think that Jeff Van Gundy will still occasionally do a good job at calling teams out when they do dumb, or just he will even get on the league for just things that don't make much sense. I remember in the NBA, I'm a Cavs fan also, and that sounds weird, but the Cleveland is the closest city with a basketball team to where I grew up, right? So I got my cousin's hand-me-downs for when I was growing up. I got his hand-me-down clothes. So when the Browns went out of existence, he changed to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan because they were, in the state next to them, I guess, but you can't go from Cleveland to Pittsburgh. So I got his Eagles hand-me-downs. That's how I ended up being a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But I'm from the Buffalo area, so I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan. And then Pittsburgh Pirates is pretty much 50-50 in my area, whether you're a Pirates fan or an Indians fan. So even though I from my Big Four sports league, different teams, I feel like I have legit reasons, and I've liked them all for 20-plus years. But I'm watching the game 1 of the NBA Finals, and probably would have given the Cavs game 1, or at least set them up in a lot better spot. When Kevin Durant was initially called for the charge on LeBron James with about a minute left, that would have made Cleveland up by 2 and have the ball.
That was the overturned.
That was the so what happened is they reviewed whether LeBron's feet were in the restricted area or not, and they weren't. So that should have been the end of the review. Instead, they decided that his upper body was moving, and then reversed the charging call based on something that isn't reviewable, but they were looking at because a different part of the play was reviewable. So Jeff Van Gundy was saying that in yeah, they got the original call wrong, but
that's not what they're supposed to be.
That's not what they're reviewing. Yep. Like, who cares if his upper body was moving in this review about where his feet are? Mm-hmm. So if just say the refs knew that his feet were out of the restricted area, they can't go and say, hey, let's review whether or not his upper body was moving or whether he moved into Kevin Durant's way or not. Mm-hmm. Yet that was the part of the play that caused them to overturn it. So Jeff Van Gundy, I remember, called them out, and maybe I'm just planting my flag there because I was irate at the time, and I'm like, yeah, Jeff Van Gundy has my back. But I just appreciate when they will call out teams or players or refs over things that are just stupid.
Yeah.
Like, guys can make a bad play every once in a while, and maybe they're open to criticism because they are paid so much. Mm-hmm. But, they're still humans and they're going to make physical mistakes. So saying like, oh, you got to make that catch. It's like, okay, like, yeah, he probably knows it too. Like calling guys out for the mental or like rule nuances that are just dumb. Like I appreciate that from Tony Romo and Jeff Van Gundy.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. It is nice compared to it is, sometimes when you just get like those boilerplate, like watching local broadcasts can be a real pain sometimes. Yeah. Like, number one, they're obviously going to be homers for whatever local team, the home team. And number two, like, they may be like, hey, like that call shouldn't have gone, against so-and-so on their team, but they're just so boilerplate. Like, they're not willing to really like take a hard stand on something. Like I, living in LA for 5 years, I watched an unusual number of LA Clippers games because that was on Fox Sports West. Okay. And man, I don't remember the guys' names off the top of my head, but that announce team was brutal. It was so bad. And it marred the experience for me. Like, I could be watching a 150 to 145 triple overtime game, but if I have to listen to these two dweebs, it takes away from the experience.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, Chris Collinsworth, maybe I give him a little bit less slack because he replaced John Madden, who, whether he knew what he was talking about or not, made everything more interesting and fun.
Yes.
Hey guys, today's show is brought to you by Chronologic.network. Chronologic is an Ethereum-based project that aims to solve time-related problems on the blockchain. Through Chronologic's 3 core products, the Ethereum alarm clock, debt smart contracts, and the day token minting mechanism, they solve the problems of payment scheduling, crypto loan time constraints, and unstable token launches. Find out more at chronologic.network.
Who I do not like is Michael Cole, who commentates WWE events, which last night there was WWE Extreme Rules.
Yep.
And people have maybe been a little disappointed with the quality of pay-per-views or WWE in general lately, but I still like it. I would rather turn my brain off and watch that than watch like a movie or something.
Yeah, I think... I mean, I feel like yesterday, right after I finished, I really didn't like the pay-per-view, but I slept on it and kind of thought about some more, kind of went back and, go on Twitter and look at some of the big moments and stuff, and it wasn't that bad. I think I probably went from like a D- to like a solid C+, as if I were to grade the pay-per-view a day later.
What pay-per-view this year has been better than it?
That's tough. That is true. I mean, you want to say WrestleMania, but the card was so bloated with the big match. Like, Shinsuke versus AJ was such a disappointment for WrestleMania.
I am over Shinsuke. I don't care about him one bit. I think he's boring. I think, I don't know, just his like silent, like what's his deal? Is his character like I don't want to be offensive, but is he like autistic, or like the way he's like moving his arms and stuff and like won't say anything? Like that's not like, you know, creative to me. That's
it's just
like,
weird to you.
Yeah, like it's not entertaining to me.
Yeah, I think they really dropped the ball with Shinsuke. Like I remember in NXT, he was cool because he was just this, you know, his whole gimmick was the King of Strong style, you know, which is the Japanese style of pro wrestling where a lot of times they really hit each other. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of his stuff was just stiff and different. Like you didn't see that from WWE at the time. And now he's just kind of another guy, which is really disappointing because I had really high hopes when he was in NXT. I thought he could have been something different for, like, you know, for the mainstream wrestling audience.
Yeah.
That just wasn't, that hasn't been the case.
He's one of those, now that he is a heel, that I don't want to see him going back and forth. He's one of those guys where I don't think he necessarily has to have less matches, but you just really want to see him get clobbered. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
In fairness, last night, I believe I saw reports like Jeff Hardy is like legit injured, and that's why they had like a 6-second match. In fairness, but I think your greater point on
But they're already
Nakamura,
rematching on Tuesday. Did he just need 2 more days to heal in Buffalo, right?
Yeah,
Raw's I'm disappointed that I'm away from my hometown there.
I mean, it could just be another like gimmick, like maybe Orton comes up, or like Orton injures Hardy before the match starts.
I thought that Jeff Hardy's face paint was so cool yesterday.
Yeah, he's been doing that a lot with the whole like eyeballs on your eyelids painting thing. That's pretty weird. That's weird and cool.
So in terms of different countries, like as far as I know, there's like Japan and USA and Mexico. Does anywhere else have like their own style of wrestling?
I guess British, but I mean, the British is pretty similar to Japan. You know, it's also British strong style, like strong style.
Yeah,
where they really kind of hit each other. That's Japan and Britain.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Canada. The only wrestlers I know from Canada, Jericho, and then everyone who's associated with the Hearts. Yeah. And that was just like more technical, you know, maybe like
Kevin Owens is Canadian. And he had probably he one of the more dangerous bumps I've seen in a long time. Like he landed on like the back of his neck. Like that looked really bad when he
that's man, that was one of the best matches I had seen in a long time. Like Braun Strowman got handcuffed to the rope, and I was like, they can't just let Kevin Owens like climb out, and I had no idea how he was going to get out of it, and how he just broke it, like didn't even occur to me. So I thought that was so cool, and then the way Kevin Owens was thrown off the top of the steel cage through a table, I don't know. That had to be match of the year on the main roster for me. Maybe there's Charlotte versus Asuka.
Yeah, I mean,
I do like Asuka, and I'm sad to see her deteriorating. They've
really cooled off her character, which is bizarre because I felt like when Asuka was on her winning streak, like her versus Rousey would have been a hot ticket match, and
yeah, I mean,
that's
plus
just not in play.
Like everyone loved her.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't something like Roman Reigns. He's the champion, or Brock Lesnar's the champion, and like people hate him, but not in like a wrestling heat way. Like they want to like not watch in the way that they dislike them.
Wrestling internet guys like to call it X-Pac heat, where it's not like you want to see him get his comeuppance, you just don't want him on your TV.
Right. And for all the trouble they're having there, like you had Asuka, whose undefeated streak was not stale and was making me more interested in the women than I'd probably ever been. And like cool, I guess, because Charlotte Flair beat her, and like she's the daughter of a legend, and it was a pretty good match at WrestleMania, but that was like it. Like you had your climax there, and that was it. Asuka's Japanese though.
Yes.
I have not seen very much or any Japanese professional wrestling. I do like Mexican.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, like Sin Cara, the first match yesterday, I don't know how you don't think that like what he's doing and like the flips and the way that I've said this with Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, when they're like wrapping their body around each other and then like flipping in that instead of just like a moment of contact, when it's like a fluid, when you're using their body as like an obstacle, I guess. Just, I don't, maybe you can enlighten me if you think that Japan is up there with Mexican, but I would like to see more Mexican style stuff.
Yeah, lucha libre stuff. That is one ongoing issue with WWE is like they have their style. Like WWE style is a thing. It's a lot of there's rest holds. They're not too they're not spot fest. Like their guys aren't just flipping around on each other. But I feel like going back to the previous topic, one of the strengths of Monday Nitro was that you'd have like the classic heavyweight style matches with Hogan and Sting, stuff like that. But then, you'd have 2 or 3 matches with just, the luchadors and, they're flipping around the ring and just, crazy exhibitions of athleticism.
Yeah. So I've never watched them enough either, Mexico or Mexican leagues. But Mexican and Japan, do they have storylines?
Yeah, they're never nearly as elaborate as WWE, but they definitely do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Shinsuke, if what he's doing in WWE right now is a good representation of Japanese wrestling, then count me out of Japanese wrestling. I don't know if it is or not, but the perception I'm getting from Shinsuke is not making me want to go watch Japanese wrestling. Whenever I see Sin Cara or Rey Mysterio, it kind of makes me think that Mexican wrestling might be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Like, I know that's pretty much the big appeal of Lucha Underground. It's like another smaller wrestling company / promotion where it's like, yeah, they focus on like that luchador style wrestling, and they also turn up the soap opera aspects. Like, I think I haven't watched since like season 1, but if I remember correctly, like there was like a big villain at the end of season 1 who's like a demon or something like that. Like just, very out there, outlandish things. But, going back to Extreme Rules, I do wish it does feel like, even guys like Seth Rollins, who could easily wrestle like that Mexican luchador style, like he doesn't. He wrestles that WWE heavyweight style.
Was it because of his injury? I didn't watch WWE before he was hurt. Did he do that earlier in his career?
I guess. At Ring of Honor, yeah, he was probably a little more bouncing around the ring. Yeah. Did you like the main event, like the Iron Man match? No.
No, I don't really think Seth Rollins is that interesting. He's not like, I don't know. He doesn't have anything to him that makes me think that he could like rule over an entire league. I like the rest of the Shield better. I mean, Roman Reigns is pretty physically gifted, and whether he's annoying or not, like if I could see it where it's like, okay, if wrestling wasn't scripted, he could be the top guy. You know what I mean? Like it seems believable that he would be in those spots. Dean Ambrose is just crazy enough where you don't necessarily know what to count him out of. I mean, Seth Rollins, I guess he's, I don't know. I don't really understand him. He's like supposed to be insane? He's got like Burn It Down, and then in commercials he just goes and like wrecks at WWE Warehouse.
Oh yeah,
he did that for the video game. I
guess he's an anarchist. That's kind of his gimmick. But yeah, I don't know. I will say after last night's event, I never in a million years I thought I'd say this, but I kind of miss John Cena. Like,
Yeah.
Like I'm not a Cena guy at all. Like when I went to Elimination Chamber in Phoenix, I booed the heck out of him. This was a couple years ago. But now it's like I do kind of miss Cena. Like, love him or hate him, at least he drummed up some sort of emotion. Like, I like Seth Rollins. I'm not nearly as ambivalent as you are with Rollins, but I could not care less about Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, I think that John Cena is interesting, maybe just for real life. Like, I respect him because he's done more Make-A-Wishes than anybody else in history. Yeah. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll give him a chance, while I'm watching something he's involved in. But, I
But see, like, even like Cena, like, I think he has more, like, charisma in his pinky than Bobby Lashley might have in, like, coursing through his entire body. And I kind of like Lashley. Like, he's ultra athletic, like, has a great look, but I don't know. WWE, I feel like, really...
I mean, if Lashley is a thing, it needs to be like a Goldberg thing where he's like unstoppable. He's not at the level of Great Khali as terms of like being that bad in terms of charisma and stuff, but like the Great Khali, his thing was that he was just so big and powerful that you couldn't. It doesn't matter if you were faster. It doesn't matter if you could out-talk him. It just because he would just chop you and smash you right down. And like, yeah, for Bobby Lashley, because he didn't do that well in UFC, right? So
I don't think he ever made it. I think it was Bellator.
Oh, well, whatever. I mean, so like
his 15-2, like it's a very respectable record,
Yeah. So I'm wrong on the UFC thing, maybe, or the MMA thing. Maybe I'll have to rethink that a little bit. But yeah, maybe it'll just take a little bit of time. I feel like I don't want to see Bobby Lashley like kind of winning, like for me to be like, okay, he's actually a threat. He needs to be squashing people.
Yeah. So yeah, like as a whole, like I said, definitely not. I mean, WWE's they've had kind of a terrible 2018.
Yeah, which is a shame because I just started paying attention after like 2017 WrestleMania. Like, I am a sucker for nostalgia, and the Hardy Boys came back, and I had not watched WWE in 10 years, and I still like got chills when the entrance music hit, and like that was insane. And it got me like interested in like, oh, like maybe I wouldn't mind feeling like that more. And the Royal Rumble was okay. I didn't know how much I disliked Shinsuke at that point because it was one of the first times I'd seen him. Yeah. I went to a live event where I saw Goldust and I saw Bo Dallas, who and Bray Wyatt, who like their connection to the golden years of wrestling of IRS and Dusty Rhodes, it like got me interested. Goldust, one of my favorite wrestlers, and I saw him win, which I thought was pretty cool. Leaving the event, I was next to Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas at the stoplight, and then they won the tag team championship last night. So I was extremely happy about that.
The B team.
I don't know why Bo Dallas didn't pin Bray Wyatt. Like,
they could be saving that. I mean, I if they can actually build Bo up, there might be money. Brother versus brother, like actual brother versus brother, not like Undertaker versus Kane. Yeah, like actual brother versus brother. There could be some money there.
But they aren't. In the WWE universe, they aren't related, are they? Like, do they acknowledge that?
I don't think they've acknowledged it.
Did the crowd... I thought one time I might have heard IRS when they were both in there, and I thought one time I might have heard Mike Rotunda, which is their dad's name, but I'm not sure, and if maybe I was just, like, wanting to hear it, so I thought that some random chant might have sounded like that. I don't know. Was that confirmed, or did you?
I don't remember.
You didn't notice it?
I kind of tuned out that match. I mean, I like what they're doing with the B team, as the Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas are called, but man, I don't know how much I care about Woken, the leaders of worlds or whatever, Woken, Matt Hardy, and Bray Wyatt, like as a team, like
When I saw Raw live, it was Matt Hardy against Bray Wyatt, and I thought I was going to hate the entire show because they were the first match and it was brutal. Like they both did like their psychological moves, I guess, where like Matt Hardy is just like yelling delete and Bray Wyatt's bending over backwards and they're just like not in contact with each other, and it was so slow paced. Matt Hardy looks like he's in pain. Like in person, I kind of noticed it. Like when he came down the ramp in WrestleMania 2017, like he looks like a guy who's been falling off ladders for 20 years. But when I saw him in person, and like how stiff he looked, like it doesn't look like he really bends like from his shoulders like to his tailbone.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I mean, dude, the Hardys, the way they wrestled for years, that's gonna catch up to them, especially now that they're in their 40s, probably mid to late 40s, or getting up there at least. Like, that's gonna catch up to them. One thing I did want to ask you about that's tangentially related to WWE, but not Extreme Rules. Do you think Hulk Hogan has served his sentence, and are you okay with him being reinstated in the Hall of Fame?
Yes. I'm not even sure exactly what, like, was it his disparaging comments against black people that got him banned? Was it his sex tape? Was it his lawsuit? Was it all of it?
I believe it was a little bit of all of it, but I think primarily his usage of, you know, racial slurs. I believe that was the primary reason.
While I do not condemn anything negative that is said about somebody based on their race, stuff that is recorded in private, I have a problem with. He should never have said it. Like, yeah, I guess you can hate Hulk Hogan if you want to, and oh my gosh, the LA Clippers owner,
Donald
Sterling, those guys should never in a million years have said what they said. But whether it was about blacks or Mexican or Asian, or it was one of those races saying it about white people, I don't think something that is like recorded in private secretly, it's just like, man,
it is a slippery slope. Yeah, like I'm kind of with you as far as like, yeah, don't say it. But
yes,
things recorded in private, there is like a weird something to having that be your downfall. Like something said, you know, look, I've said regrettable things in private. Thank goodness no one was recording me. But
yeah,
you know.
I mean, like, just everyone's made mistakes. You know, now if you look at someone like Harvey Weinstein or Weinstein, is there like an official pronunciation of it? Weinstein, like, you know, sexual harassment or like something like that. I don't know why. I just feel like it's different because it's like affecting that person in the there and now.
Yeah.
Whether Donald Sterling is saying it or not, those were his beliefs, and he was probably going to act that way, you know, act the same way towards a different race or just towards people in general, whether he had said it or not. It wasn't like that one moment was defining who he was as a person. And I have I wish that race and skin color was not a thing, and I personally think less of those people for saying the things that they did. I just want whoever immediately judged them to think about if everything you've ever said had been secretly recorded, or if your internet history got undeleted and published to the world one day. Like, you know, okay, yeah, like, fine, you don't think that somebody should say those things whether they're being recorded or not. Yeah, I mean, they were pretty bad, but just secretly recorded is what I have a problem with. And I wish that we thought of some other example that didn't involve race, because it would make me look a lot cleaner. You know what I mean?
But I know what you're saying, though. It's like, or even just like, I mean, I don't know what the one-to-one comparison would be, but yeah, there's, you know, the whole, you know, throwing stones in glass houses. Like I said, I've said many regrettable things in private. I'm glad none of it was recorded like this is now. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah. Well, Hulk Hogan back. I mean, he was an iconic wrestler. I don't know necessarily about a great wrestler. I guess he just had that personality. I think that Macho Man Randy Savage kind of did what Hulk Hogan did, except better, because he was a better wrestler.
Significantly better wrestler.
And you know, I don't know if it was just people didn't like the way he treated Miss Elizabeth or whatever prevented him or Hulk Hogan and just coming around so much earlier that he had already established himself. But, you know, I don't think you can deny, you know, whether his only move was Hulk up, punch, leg drop or not. Like, people who don't even know wrestling know Hulk Hogan. So I think that he should be in the Hall of Fame. I do not agree with what he said. He shouldn't have said those things. And, you know, maybe it was just like his sex tape being released and his lawsuit, and there's just like WWE's like, okay, man, like
it's a little too much.
Yeah, crazy PR. This is about the 10th thing you've been involved with, whether it was the steroid scandal, and he had one other thing. The Gawker, the recording, you know, I mean, just enough is enough, and whether it just all built up, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope you're still with us, and if you are, we greatly appreciate it. This has been Unpopular Opinions. I'm Ryan Tofil. That's Brian Chai, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.